Hello, Clement229 here with another Topic of the Week video. I'm still feeling a little sick, but I've been taking some stuff, so I'm getting better. Now, today's topic will be over one of my favorite movies of all time, Galaxy Quest. This topic was sent by my friend Adrian89, and her topic was, what is it about Galaxy Quest that makes it such a great parody compared to other so-called parodies? What does it get that other not as successful parodies don't? Why do you think it's not only a great parody, but just a great movie in general? Your thoughts on its CGI, practical effects, and makeup. Your thoughts on the casting, and who's your favorite character? The topic of parodies can be difficult to discuss because parodies have, in modern times, fallen into a very unpleasant category of being just bad. When we have crap like Scary Movie, we had crap like Scary Movie 57, that date night movie or whatever it was called, and the Meet the Spartans. A lot of people don't get parodies anymore and don't get what makes a parody funny. You know, one of the things that a lot of these modern parody movies, which are basically just trying to copy the success that the original Scary Movie had, was they're trying way too hard to be topical. They're trying way too hard to make fun of things that are happening right then. So, while they may be, even jokes that might be funny at the time, a few months from then, a year from then, 2 years from then, people aren't just going to find it not funny, but they're also going to look at it and go, some people will look at it and go, what was that? Like the one joke in Meet the Spartans, when they had basically Britney Spears with the shaved head and stuff sitting on the edge of the pit, and Leonidas kicks her in, and it's just like, okay. People who watch that now would say, wait, what's the joke? Or some people will get it, but other people won't, and it's just not funny anymore. It was funny for all 5 seconds. Good parodies, and I'm going to stuff like Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights, do make fun of things that happened at the time, but they're not things that are super cultural. Like in Robin Hood Men in Tights, when Robin is sitting there and he's just like, unlike other Robin Hoods, I can speak in a British accent. I believe that was a crack at the Mel Gibson one. I don't remember. It was one of the other ones. But, you know, it's still funny because you can still get the joke and it's not something that's super topical. On top of that, a lot of these parodies will come up with their own jokes. In Spaceballs, she's morphing into a giant maid. Oh, may the Schwartz be with you. She's a real Druish princess. Well, that's funny. She doesn't look Druish. You know, these are jokes that you can say 20, 30 years from when they were originally made. Another thing that parodies typically do is something that Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights and Galaxy Quest got, is that they were not just parodying a single thing. They were parodying a genre. Galaxy Quest, and getting back to Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest gets it. Galaxy Quest understands that you can't just make jokes about things that are going on. In fact, I can't think of any real jokes, significant jokes in it that were super cultural. A lot of it was Star Trek jokes, which by that time, when the movie was made in the late 90s, you know, Star Trek had already been around for a long time. So, this is something else that I've talked about, is focus. The reason why Spaceballs Robin Hood Men in Tights, and Galaxy Quest are all great parodies is because they focus on what they're parodying. For Spaceballs, it was Star Wars. It was, you know, all the 3 Star Wars movies. For Robin Hood Men in Tights, it was Robin Hood, and I believe it was, I don't remember, was it there was specifically one it was parodying. And then in Galaxy Quest, it is Star Trek with a few other, you know, jokes thrown in, like, it always stops on one in the show. How a self-destruct will always stop on one, or they'll always reach it right when it's about to hit one, or something like that. And it's jokes that jokes that people have made that have persevered for a long time, and people can relate to that joke, saying, "Oh yeah, I remember that." How when Gwen is making fun of Captain Taggart, saying that he slept with every Tavarian moon girl and Tavarian moon princess and slave girl in the show, making jokes towards Kirk's philandering. You know, and it's jokes, it's stuff like this that's funny, that's not going to go out of style in a month. And talking about the focus is what really helps. This is also what makes it a good movie. This is what makes Spaceballs a good movie. It's because it focuses on what it's parodying. Occasionally they can do some jumps to other stuff within the genre, like when I believe the ending of Spaceballs was a parody on aliens. I think that there's a chest burster, and then it jumps up and it's like starts dancing. But it's still within the genre. But overall, the movie focuses on parodying Star Wars. Galaxy Quest focuses on parodying Star Trek. Robin Hood Men in Tights focuses on parodying the Robin Hood movies. And one of the things, this, like, even Young Frankenstein, very focused on parodying Frankenstein. And when it focuses on what it's doing, it is much better. Because one of the problems that stuff like, of these stupid movies, the only ones I've seen is Meet the Spartans, so I'm sorry that I have to keep bringing this movie up. One of the problems that movie had is that it would constantly jump off at all these tangents, trying to parody a dozen movies at a time. Like, when the Queen suddenly turns into the black, the symbiote Spider-Man, and it's just like, why? I mean, it's so random, and it only happened because that happened to be a movie that came out at the time. And it really breaks the movie up. It really makes it hard to enjoy. I mean, I'm not going to say that Meet the Spartans didn't have any funny jokes. Some of the jokes that were funny were relevant to the movie, like the conflict between the Persians and the Spartans, and they get up and they start doing Yo Mama jokes and breakdancing. I mean, yeah, is it cliche to do Yo Mama jokes? Yes, but it's so ridiculously stupid. These two warriors, these two group of fearsome warriors are making Yo Mama jokes at each other. And it was, of course, one of the things they showed in the trailer. Now, I said the movie didn't have any funny parts, but when it starts going off on all these tangents, it's like, you could have been funny. Another thing that parodies do is oftentimes point out, deconstruct, and I don't know if I mentioned deconstruction in a previous video. I believe I did. I can't remember if I did. I'll have to check my list of topics that I've done before. But deconstructions really help with parodies, because you also not only get to make jokes about it, you also get to make jokes that point out things of why something would work, why something wouldn't. Like in Galaxy Quest, when Jason is rolling around on the planet, and then Gwen's just like, does the rolling help? Because old Star Trek, some of the action was just goofy looking. And it's like, is this really necessary? And then he's just like, yeah, it's necessary. He's like, then where's your gun? he was rolling and his gun fell out of his holster. You get to make jokes like that, or how some things that happen that were totally ridiculous don't even deserve to be there. Like when they're going through the choppers, and then it's like completely no reason for these things to be there, and Gwen's just screaming, "Why is this here? There's no logical reason," and it's screaming, and they're like, "Because it was in the show," and they're like, "This episode was badly written." Pointing to sometimes the show would get ridiculous, and even this happens in sci-fi in general when some just totally random thing happens. It's like it even applies to fiction in general. And this is something great, is that when parodies can apply to other genres aside from the one it's parodying, which is what Galaxy Quest did. The movie has a lot of, they make fun of the idea of red shirts with Guy. They actually make jokes about him being the only one who will die. When they're flying down to the planet to get the beryllium sphere, and he's just like, "I changed my mind, I want to go back." And I'm like, after the fuss you made about getting left behind. And he's like, "That's what I thought. I was up there, and then something's up there that kills me. No, I think I'm the guy who dies 5 minutes after we land on the planet." And then when the miners go crazy, and Gwen's just like, "Hurry before one of those things kills Guy," because to them, in their logic, he's the extra. He's the unnamed guy who beams down to the planet and dies to show how dire the situation is. And it's just what makes this movie work is that its jokes are on point. And this is one thing that's really important, aside from focus, are the jokes. Jokes need to be good. Without good jokes, a parody will fall flat. And jokes can be visual gags, they can be one-liners, they can be, of course, parodies, and oftentimes parodying things from whatever the source material is. You have ideas of saying Brandon, the kid, there's the normal kid who's just a young Trekkie who, funnily enough, when I watching this last time with Angel Ren, I did notice that he's actually younger. He was born after the show ended. At least he was very, very young when the show was airing. I'm trying to think of because he was probably in his mid to late teens, and it was 1999, and the show ended. Two-parter, which was repaired in 1982. So, it references stuff like, there's a whole generation of fans of stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars who didn't grow up with it when they were kids. Well, now we have like The Force Awakens and the J.J. Abrams Star Treks. But yeah, before that, I know guys who didn't grow up with Star Trek, or grew up with the old Star Trek because of their parents. And this goes back to a point that I think is one of the most important parts of parodies. It has to respect the source material. A lot of times, there are times when people will do parodies and they're mean-spirited. And their goal is to make fun and mock it. And these are never all that great. And they tend to fall flat. Because good parodies love what they're making jokes about. They're making jokes because they enjoy it. On Galaxy Quest, when you make jokes, it's made by someone. I guarantee you that the person who person or people who wrote that movie at least enjoy Star Trek. You can't go through this. You can't have written this movie without at least some respect towards Star Trek, because this is something that's really important. You have to respect the material enough to make a good parody of it. When you start making parodies of stuff you don't like, and yes, you can make jokes about stuff you don't like, but overall, like a parody movie, if you don't have any care or respect, this is why a lot of stuff, these other movies, fail, because they don't respect. They're just doing it to make a buck. They're making jokes, they're making topical jokes, they're making jokes about movies, and a lot of times they don't fit. Because it's not at all about how many jokes you make. It's about how respectful it is. And you can still make fun of and deconstruct cliches and things while still respecting it, because overall, Galaxy Quest is in fact a reconstruction of the idea. You have these actors who played basically the characters in Star Trek, brought up into an actual ship, and actually have to fight aliens. And you're sitting there like, okay, there's no way they can do it, right? But they end up succeeding. They end up winning. It's victorious. It's a reconstruction upon the deconstruction. That's a very important thing to reconstruct after you deconstruct. And I know I've talked about this before, but I'm not sure if I talked about it in a previous video. Definitely a topic I need to talk more about with reconstructions and deconstructions, because that's very important to not only parodies, but plenty of things. What makes it a good parody and also a great movie? The movie itself is solid. It has solid writing, it has solid acting, it has solid character development. We have legitimate emotional moments. If this wasn't a parody moment, if Star Trek didn't exist and this is the only thing of its kind, only movie of its kind to exist, sure, we wouldn't understand. The jokes wouldn't be as funny because it is referencing Star Trek, but it would still be an enjoyable movie. Even when I didn't know much about Star Trek, when I was a kid when watching this movie, I was like 8 when it came out, and my parents are both Trekkies, and they both love Star Trek, and I kind of grew up with the Next Generation. But, I wasn't into Star Trek at the time, and I was just a kid. I didn't understand all the nuances of these references, and it's one of the things that's so great is this is stuff like Freakazoid. Like, you think of it as a kid and you're like, oh, that was funny. You go back and you're like, I never appreciated all the work that went into this and all the humor. And that's what's great, and that's what a good parody would do. If you watch it as a kid and you watch it when you're an adult, you're going to be able to appreciate it so much more as an adult, especially after becoming more familiar with the source material. And Galaxy Quest not only tackled stuff from the show, they also did stuff with the cast. Like how Dr. Lazarus was the Spock, and how... I forgot the actor's name. But yeah, he was basically like Spock, and the actor was like Leonard Nimoy. He came, and he was also, I guess, sort of a mixture of of other actors, but he came from a Shakespearean background, and he's famous, and he did this one sci-fi role, and he's been stuck in that role for 20 years. It's like, that actually sucks. And he had come to resent his role very strongly, to the point where he hated when people used Dr. Lazarus' catchphrase of, by Grabthar's hammer you shall be avenged. Just like how Leonard Nimoy had this total, resentment towards Spock for a while, because, people only knew him as Spock, before eventually coming back to realize, okay, but people still love me, and people still love this role. And, and then, Captain Taggart was Kirk, very obviously, and all the talks about William Shatner's ego, Jason Nesmith does do that, and he lives in a nice house when everyone books appearances without anyone else, and hoards all the glory and money for himself, and everyone hates him. You have all these references to India. You had the black guy, like Uhura was, the black person on the crew, which, was significant at the time. But, and he was also a mixture of that and Wesley, the kid on the deck, and it was like, this kid was flying the ship. And it's such an amalgam of not only the original Star Trek, but even make references to like Next Generation, and that's what it is. It's made with love. But even though it's based entirely on Star Trek, it's still an enjoyable movie. You get moments when Jason Ismith has when Jason Ismith has the revelation, like after all these years, he gets shattered by overhearing some guys making fun of him and realizing, crap, I've been stuck in this for 20 years. And with an outsider's perspective, he just realizes, oh, because he was living in this bubble for all these years, and he was so obsessed with his own ego. And you knew when he apologizes to Mathazar for lying, about being Jason, or about being Quincy Taggart, or yeah, and you get these legitimate moments, and it's what makes it a good movie, because a parody will still fall flat if it's not well handled. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy movies like The Last Action Movie Hero, and I really hope I get to talk about that movie because I love that movie. Not just from a parody, but also from a deconstruction standpoint of action movies, of the Arnold Schwarzenegger type. And it all comes down to they put an effort to make a good movie. This is one of the reasons why Spaceballs is good. Yes, Spaceballs is goofy as hell. It's totally ridiculous. But they still made a movie. They didn't just make a whole bunch of jokes strung together. They made an actual movie. You have the characters reject, you deal with the sad and monotonous lives of the of the actors. You deal with the revelation that someone actually did build a ship of the UNSC Protector. Or UNSC. It's Halo. Excuse me. But they built a ship built an actual size of the Protector. And modeled everything after the show. And then they actually have to do it, and they come to terms with this new role they have. And they come together and they're victorious. And they grow and they learn to overcome their... the issues and resentment that they had towards, being stuck with the same role, and they actually get to revive the show in the end, and they actually get to have, they come back, but with a renewed sense of purpose and excitement for what they do, and and it's, and it's just. It's so good, and you get character development. You get Jason going from being a complete egotistical bastard to being willing to help people and becoming a competent commander. And it's so great, and it works as a real movie. Not to say that parodies aren't real movies, but compared to stuff like Meet the Spartans, it's so much more competent as a movie. The CGI and practical effects. I don't know the exact, balance towards what was CGI, but you see there's a lot of, I see our practical effects, but even the CGI is good. The rock monster looks a little dated, but then again, this movie is, almost 20 years old. When did Galaxy Quest come out? It's like 99 or 2000. Or something like that. Yeah, 1999. So the movie is 17 years old. Yeah, and I think that the CGI holds up pretty well for the time. The miners still look good. There are a lot of practical effects on, like, Saris, and it's something, and this is something I hadn't realized looking at him, and it's like, and I'm sure there were some CGI effects on them, but there's so much practical effects, and that hailing back to the old age where they didn't have CGI to substitute this stuff, so they actually have all these guys in the armor and the guns, and they have Saris's face, and when you really think, I was watching this again, and I was just blowing my mind thinking about this thing. Wow, these are some really good effects. I mean, in the fact of the movie, that it's 16, 17 years old, still holds up. It still holds up. You know, and that's that's shocking. You know, its effects are so good, and even the CGI holds up. This movie overall holds up. You can watch this now, and it's still good, and I love movies like that. Movies that you would think would age horribly. Like, some sci-fi movies don't age as well. But Galaxy Quest has aged as well. And, you know, I just found myself impressed. And it's one of those things when watching as an adult is something I had never thought about. Saris is a guy with, you know, makeup and, you know, plaster all over his face and stuff. And it's like, and he has this suit and like the wings, and it's like all this stuff. I've never been able to appreciate this until I grew up and said, wow, people actually made all this. And sure, there was CGI, but the CGI is good, and it's not, excuse me, it's not, you know, intrusive. Like, some people will use CGI and it's like super obnoxious, but this is just, sure, they couldn't legitimately do some of this stuff. They're not going to make a real rock monster with real rock, so the CGI is a necessity, and it was used in the proper ways, and it was used to enhance the movie instead of substituting, and that's so great. Thoughts on the casting? I thought the movie was casted really well. All the actors did a fantastic job. You know, having Tim Allen play the Captain Kirk is funny, and he really nailed the role of being a complete a-hole to everyone, and then growing up, and then and Tim Allen's a good actor. He was able to pull through those really emotional moments, and you know it's great. Sigourney Weaver as Gwen was great. And special mention to the late Alan Rickman for his role as Dr. Lazarus. Dr. Lazarus. Alexander. Yeah, Alexander, that's his real name. And, you know, when you see that he's that, and he played the part of the classically trained Shakespearean actor who loved the craft, you know, being stuck in a cheesy sci-fi role for the rest of his life. He played that role to a T. And, you know, and of course Alan Rickman was a fantastic actor, so he was really able to pull through those bigger moments, like, and he was able to pull the comedy. You know, the comedy is great. All the actors had great comedic timing. Tony Shalhoub was great in this. Because he's practically just super chill the whole time. Like, I was just teleported through a black hole and shot through space. But, you know, no big deal, right? That was a hell of a thing. Who played Guy Fleetman? I'm trying to remember. Is it Sam Rockwell? Yeah, Sam Rockwell. And, you know, he played the super pathetic red shirt crewman number 6 to a T, and it was great. In fact, I actually was shocked to see him in other roles not being pathetic. I'm just sitting there, I'm like, because when I grew up, that was who I saw Sam Rockwell as. And, you know, you had all these other actors, and I don't really particularly remember the name of these other ones since but everyone played the role great, and it's impressive that everything came together so well for this. You know, who's your favorite character? That's really hard. I can't really say I have a favorite character. I mean, I like Mathazar's character, but I can't pick a favorite character. I love all these characters so much. Everyone does their own thing. Everyone has a moment to shine. Everyone has great lines. That thing's moving towards the green thing. What? I think it's moving towards the green thing. I think we're the green thing. Or they're talking about the miners, and then Fred's just sitting there, and he's like, yeah, and they're like 3 years old, and then Alexander's like, miners, not miners. He's just like, you lost me. Oh, there's so many. All these characters are great. I can't pick a favorite character. I really can't. Everyone's great. All the characters are great. So yeah, it's the one thing that makes a parody succeed is being well written, being well made, and respect. Respect is necessary. Even if you're making something that would be considered a criticism, it still has to be done in respect. It has to be, constructive criticism, not mean-spirited criticism. When someone says, this episode is badly written, there's no logical point for this to be here. It's simply making a joke about how if you put a real person in the situation, they wouldn't handle it as well. And that's just what this movie is so good at. And it's what makes a good parody. A good parody can stand on its own and without basically knowing a bajillion things. That's why stuff like DBZ Abridged and Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series are funny. To someone like me who has never watched the shows, really, outside of like maybe 1 or 2 episodes. So when, they make jokes, and they'll make jokes towards, the original show, but it's something that I can still watch and enjoy, and you can still watch and enjoy Galaxy Quest. It's just really funny if you know what they're joking about. Parodies are one of my favorite genres. I love parodies. I love doing parodies. I love seeing parodies. But the art of the parody has really fallen into disrepair in all recent times. Because a lot of people don't understand how to make a parody. They're just making a whole movie full of a bunch of jokes that are about things that are going on at the time and don't really understand what they're parodying. Occasionally a few jokes will slip through. Especially the painted on abs scene from Meet the Spartans. I thought that was freaking hilarious. It's like, the Oracle say you will die. The Oracle also thinks our painted on abs look fake. It shows the fat Spartan. Them just drawing these cheap painted on abs. And that's something that's because it's relevant. And it's ridiculous that they would have a fat Spartan. And stuff like this is what makes it funny. Some parodies will sway between being more on the serious side and more on the jokey side. On the jokey side, you have stuff like Spaceballs, which are constantly making jokes. Constantly, everything is a joke. Going to plaid speed, watching the movie they're in while they're filming the movie because of super special technology. It's hilarious. And then you have something like Galaxy Quest that hits it more on the serious side sometimes, and it actually does give a plot. And both of these are great. And the Last Action Movie Hero does fall a bit towards that too. And and I enjoy both. And I just want to see more. And one thing I really want to see, I want to see parodies come back. And I want to see good parody movies. I want to be able to enjoy these movies. And maybe something that blocks out from all the constant dark and bleakness that a lot of movies in the modern generation are doing. There's still room for parodies, and people just need to understand how to make them without making them crappy movies. So yeah, I think that's really it for today. We'll need to take something else too. My cough. But yes, if you have a topic, if you're on YouTube, just post below on what topic you want to see me talk about. If you're on Tumblr, just send me an ask and put topic, then whatever topic. Just make sure that it's something fictional and it's something specific enough that I can actually talk about. So that it's not just, what do you think of X and why do you like Y? I need something specific so that I can, actually give a decent discussion on it. So, yeah, thank you for watching.